let's take a look at what we have on our local dailies now. Let me start with the Star newspaper. On the front page of the Star, new motion to deny Uhuru Raila pension. New motion to deny Uhuru Raila pension. Outfits participating in anti-government demos could be denied political parties fund. That is on page 4 and 5 of the Star newspaper. Pastor Ezekiel to spend 2 more days in police custody. I'll be getting to know his fate tomorrow. Prepare for return of El Nino deluge. That is, according to the weatherman, Kenya is among 20 countries at risk of the effects of another El Nino. We remember the effect of El Nino some years back. That's the prediction of the Global Information and Early Warning System update by FAO. Now, the highlights showed that the El Nino's oceanographic phenomenon is likely to return in June, with the UN update report predicted excessive rainfall and possible flooding. So we all know the effects of El Nino, how it happened some years back, and therefore the weatherman and even the UN is now reporting that we should be ready for that. Kenya receives 408 billion shillings loan to ease cost of living. That came from the Africa Export and Import Bank towards the fertilizer subsidy and the new fuel supply program trial. The bank on Tuesday announced that the disbursement of the funds meant to cushion various sectors of the economy from external shocks. Senator launch probe into alleged hacking of IFMAs. National Treasury officials are on the spot over alleged interference with the automated financial system as the senators open a probe into alleged hacking of the system. This is serious. So the lawmakers said that IFMAs has been grossly interfered with, stalling transactions.
How now?
I mean, hey, Kenya is an interesting country.
It didn't have safety nets, safeguards.
And who, I mean, IFMAs was one of the most safest websites and even the system that the government used to do their transactions. And now they're saying that's been hacked. Okay, I don't know what's the end game. Pastor Ezekiel to spend 2 more nights in custody. He is accused of aiding suicide and radicalization, among others. Last Friday, Odero actually, let me just get it, as a Shanzu Magistrate Court in Mombasa has refused an application by Director of Public Prosecution to continue holding Pastor Ezekiel Odero of New Life Prayer Center and Church in Mavueni in Kilifi for 30 days. So last Friday, Odero was arraigned in court where he was accused of jointly and by conspiracy committing the felony of murder, aiding suicide, abduction, radicalization, genocide, crimes against humanity, child cruelty, fraud, and money laundering. So the Director of Public Criminal Investigations filed a sworn affidavit asking the court to deny Odero bail terms because the crimes under the investigations by the nature, gravity, and seriousness are complex. So he'll know his fate soon. Okay. The issue of Ruto men in new push to block Uhuru and Raila retirement packs, that is here. President, that is in a new plan, Ruto MPs are seeking to have retirement benefits for retired President Uhuru Kenyatta, Azimio leader Raila Odinga, and Wiper boss Kalonzo Musyoka stopped over their involvement in politics. The pro-government legislators also want political parties participating in the anti-government demonstrations to be denied the political parties fund. But my question is here, Doreen, when you say that the new plan is to deny the two, actually the three, that is Raila Odinga, Uhuru Kenyatta, and Kalonzo Musyoka, their retirement packs, how is it connected to their democratic right? Because demonstrations is part of the democratic right, and having their pension is also another democratic right. Where do these two meet?
I think it's the reason behind denying them pension because of those democratic rights. But again, you also realize the law does stipulate that that for any former president, I'm not so sure about the different other positions, but at least for president, I know that if you're a former president and you have already retired, you need not be in active politics for the next 6 months. So the president had up until January to exit, is it January or February, to exit active politics if he's supposed to be entitled to the entire retirement package. Because that's what that law on retirement on former heads of state does state. But again, you realize someone like Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka, they've always been enjoying the sparks, and they have not been in active politics. So I'm just beginning to think, so then, yes, the law is there. We need to follow the law. We haven't been quite following it, but now on this need basis, so then now it becomes necessary to actually now realize, wait a minute, the Retirement Act actually does say that when you engage in active politics and you're a former head of state or the likes, then you need not to be enjoying this. So this is just coming out now. I mean, it beats the purpose of the laws that we make. So then we actually make laws for who?
For who? My question is, because when you connect the two, the demonstrations, which is completely enshrined in the Constitution, they have their
That's
right.
also another thing. Article 37 well stipulates that.
Exactly. And you're also entitled to your retirement packs. So who is going to deny you your retirement packs, and where does the law say that if you actively participate in demonstrations, you're going to lose this? It can be challenged.
Are they looking at demonstrations as active participation in politics?
My question. But again, it is your right to pick to demonstrate.
All this is enshrined in the law. So which part of the law are you picking to?
Are they going to
inform your decision on this? It's like when the CS Interior said that whether they present a notice or not present any notice, they're not going to be demonstrating. But then you realize, where do you draw the line? Because the law does allow for this peaceable demonstrations. So then at what point are you saying that whether you do this or not? And you realize you need not present that notice per se, as long as you just have made that information.
For them, they're doing it from the humanitarian aspect. And basically, or to say that we covered all the loopholes. Did you inform the police? Yes. Did you alert them? Yes, we did. Written document? Yes. Here it is. So if somebody goes to court,
it's like you're saying, what overrides the other? Because actually in the Public Order Act, you need to present that notice within those stipulated time frames. But the law actually in that article that you're saying does allow for that. So, okay, we are just asking, but then we don't have the answers to this question.
But my question is, with no specific reference, do some people really care about their packs? Okay.
I see where you're going. Right?
New swerve in Jubilee Party as route of action expels ex-president, and now that happened yesterday. Sabina Chege is now the interim leader of Jubilee. How that will pan out is an interesting way. Azimio turn hit on Gachagua and Kuria over protest chaos. The leaders claim that Raila and Kalonzo security details withdrawn hours to protest, and this is even as the opposition declared that the protest will continue on Thursday and decried withdrawal of their leaders Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka security details hours to yesterday's demos. The Raila-led opposition accused Gachagua troops of sponsoring goons who destroyed property and caused mayhem during the demos. How that is going to happen, let's just wait and see for tomorrow. Doreen.
Yeah, and I just want to start with the back page of this specific daily. This is the Daily Nation, and it covers what is happening in the counties. A bit of some good news, I should say, because governors are now withdrawing the shutdown threat, as counties have gotten their 31 billion for the month of February. Remember, just about a month back or some weeks back, there was that threat to shut down counties because they hadn't received their disbursement for the month of January, February, March, and April. But after some this notice to the national government and the Treasury, I should say, the Treasury did disburse the January funds, and just recently they've disbursed the February funds, the 31 billion. And my biggest question will be, because Victor, you cover a lot of the counties, and so then we have really seen the stalemate in the counties that because of this monies not going down to the counties. We've seen services being hampered at some point. We actually did see in some counties where doctors had threatened to go on a go slow because they hadn't received their salaries for about months, 3 or 4 months therein. And so now what governors are asking for is for the month of March and April. But now they're saying so far, not so bad. Yes, it's 94 billion for these 2 remaining months, but at least the January and Feb has already been disbursed. And so now they're saying, strike and shut down, no more. And I'm just thinking, so it means that there was actually money, and it perhaps called for them to give a notice of strike, and then you realize that 47 counties are going to shut down. This is going to hamper the services and how things move in the county. So then Treasury now released the February disbursement. Why does it have to take such notices?
Yeah.
I mean, issuing a strike notice, issuing a shutdown notice, and then boom, at the point of that issuing,
then the money is
released. Why don't you just release this money and let these counties run and function?
I think that calls for the real intention of having the devolved system. When you ask these governors how the devolved system of governance has been working so far, a majority of them will say yes, devolution has worked. But some of the loopholes that they are facing as governors is because the connection between the national government and the county governments is still not so strong, because you realize that the exchequer, the national government, will have to get money from the treasury to the counties. But the national government as well have a lot of responsibility and priorities. So from, like, for example, right now, the government is now servicing loans which actually matured. And for us, running into the risk of losing and having a lot of interest rates and what have you.
Servicing loans that are maturing, I mean, by the time you're taking this loan, whatever it is, Eurobond, you name it, you knew that at this point in time.
Exactly.
It's good. And these things are planned
but
for.
We also have our own issues. Like, for example, right now, we've had another 408 billion shillings to help us have the fuel program.
The one that the country is getting?
Exactly. And the fertilizer subsidy. But then you ask the governors, when there is money, how do they get that disbursement from the National Treasury? The National Treasury will also tell you, we are also waiting for the tax to be collected. We don't have enough money yet. The money that is being collected nationally is being used to service loans and to pay salaries and to do other things. But the question the governors will always ask you, so how do we run these counties? We have got salaries to pay here, down here, because we have got all sorts of devolved, functions. For example, health. But the kind of some kind of fluid agreement between the national government and the county government has never been that okay. When it comes to disbursement of money, governors will always have a problem with the treasury.
And you're saying that, and I'm just reminded of what the Senate did agree on, the 385 billion annually to go to the counties, as opposed to what governors were asking, which was 427. CRA had proposed for 407. And so then you would expect the Senate, being the oversight body or house for the counties, and their main mandate is just looking into how counties function and run, they would agree to this 407. But then they said they agreed with the national government of 385. So then county governments and national governments, and then they really just can't come to a consensus. Aside even from just disbursement of this 31 billion, 94 billion, now the remaining amount, even just collectively, whatever it is that the governors wanted, the national government said that we do not have that money.
The national government will always argue this way, that yes, we are giving you money, which is your right. But you also remember that you're collecting your own revenue from your own counties. So whatever you're going to give you, just have a small top-up from your own collection, revenue collection from your respective counties, and run your systems. And from their research and their studies, the national government knows that some of these county governments collect a lot of money in terms of revenue.
I feel like we need to come and discuss this a bit more, because KRA has a proposal, but we have to take a quick breather on this one. We circle back and we continue looking at more of what the dailies have covered for you this Wednesday morning. So don't go anywhere, stay put. Welcome back to the program. We definitely appreciate your valid company, and we continue a pace and parking for you what the dailies are holding for you. And we were just on that issue of the counties, and I was saying, Victor, this is one of the biggest areas that you cover, the counties and the county stalemate. We have seen back and forth between national government and counties government, and we saw this even with the allocations, whatever the counties were requesting for, a total of 427. That is what the Council of Governors were asking for. Yeah. But then the national government said, in fact, we've just increased by 15 billion because the previous financial year was at 370 billion. They have now increased it to 385, but still counties are saying this is not enough. CRA, Commission on Revenue Allocation, the body mandated to do this, actually proposed for 407. But we saw the senators agreeing with what the National Assembly did pass of 385. But counties are saying this is still not enough. So then one would question also the question of the issue of own source revenues. Then does it mean that counties do not have enough capacity to generate their own source revenue, so that whatever comes from national government, because it's also enshrined in law, 15% of what is made needs to be going to the counties, and we are seeing that at least coming to par. But from the point of argument of counties that this is not enough, where does it place the question of own source revenue? Because whatever national government gives you needs to supplement, or whatever you make as own source revenue needs to supplement.
When the question of own source revenue, and again, that supports your, actually the revenue that you get from the national government. Counties are not the same. For example, Nairobi and Turkana, Wajir, or northern counties, the kind of revenue they collect from those counties compared to Nairobi is completely different. Yeah. Nairobi alone collects an amount. It's quite rare to hear that some workers in Nairobi are going on strike.
Yeah, I mean, also look at the positioning of it's a capital city also.
And therefore, when you compare certain counties and their source of revenue, the way they collect their own revenue to support themselves might not work for them because of the economic standards that these particular counties have. Yeah. Again, the issue of 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote.
And it's coming out again.
It's coming out again, whereby some of the legislators, and even the the BBI proposal had it. Yeah. The 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote. So that there's equalization in terms of which county gets what, as per the population, the population head and what have you. But then now you realize that it was not coming to work, until some of these governors who are either MPs way back then from the other side of the political wing, some of them were senators, are actually governors right now. So they're feeling the pinch that, hey, you know what? I have got salaries to pay. Yes. I have got pending bills to service. The suppliers are in my office on a daily basis that they need their loans. I mean,
service paid.
It's so crazy that if you are a governor and you're not able to get your own source revenue, the national government also is not getting you the money that you need. You'll all have to get out and look for donors. And that is why you realize some of these governors, most of them are always in flight, going, international countries, looking for donors, this and that, just for them to survive.
Because also the overdrafts that they're used to getting. Yes. I mean, because also how this overdraft works, only in the first month, you take it like this month, you pay it by next month, that's good enough for you, no interest. But you realize that cannot happen. I mean, with this continuous pending bills, like for now we're talking about 94 billion for the month of March and April. So clearly, this overdraft over time accrue interest. Yeah. So by the time the money comes from national government, the first thing you're thinking about is, how do I clear off this funds?
Yeah, I settle this first before you get to another one. Before
so even this percentage that needs to go to the
strike notice
to development, as the exact percentage eludes my mind, that needs to be going to development in counties. That's why you see most counties development is at the back of the mind, because is it the loan you will pay that you took, the pending bill? Is it the salaries you'll first deal with? I mean, we've had cases and instances of county workers, contractors even committing suicide because it's been years on end.
The pressure is real. And that's why some of the governors and even some of the legislators we've talked to here on set say that they need to have a certain kind of law that bars that if you are a governor and you're doing your 10-year term, before you leave office, first of all, you have to give a track record, or you have to give a report on what you've done. And I mean, exactly. Most of the pending bills, that before you exit office, first of all, you have to make sure that you service those before. Yeah.
But I'm looking at the practicability of servicing those loans and pending bills, given the kind of situation we are in and the cash crunch. I mean, over time, most of you had the state and this regime talking about cash crunch.
Yeah. All right.
Nonetheless, as you try to wind up on the newspaper review, Victor, I'm also seeing something else here, still on the back page of the Daily Nation, away from the counties, matters to do with the education also, taking center stage there. And this in regards to the report on education reforms, which is set to be released this Friday by the Presidential Working Party on education reforms. Remember, we had a teaser on that, which informed the placement of JSS from what was proposed previously in secondary schools to primary schools, and that is why we have grade 7, 8, and 9 being domiciled in primary schools. Now, the final report is expected to be released this Friday. Some bit of reprieve, particularly for JSS learners, because what this daily is establishing is the number of subjects which will be reduced from 12 to about 10. Remember, there had also been concerns in regards to that, especially when it came to personnel and the teachers, because we looked at some areas which still didn't have teachers beginning 30th January when JSS reopened school. So that had been a major concern. So when you look at some of these subjects being reduced, at least a bit of a reprieve in regards to that. Also, there had been concerns of some JSS teachers not being paid. We wait to see how this report will address such matters. And again, also the other thing that is supposed to be coming out in this particular report is tertiary and university placement. So there's a lot that's going to be featured and covered in this report, which had been spearheaded by the Presidential Working Party on education reforms as far as the education sector is concerned. And lastly, before I toss it over to Victor to just finish up on the different dailies that he has, Sabina overthrows Uhuru. That is actually the flag that you have there on the Daily Nation, of course, just coming out a day after we saw the change of guard being spearheaded by the faction led by Kanini Kega there, placing Sabina Chege as the acting chair of the Jubilee Party. But also questions have come forth with regards to the ruling parties in this country and just why they cannot be sustained immediately after an election or after that regime. There's less you hear about the party that had been the ruling party, and the same is also just being witnessed in this specific party, the Jubilee Party, which was the ruling party in the previous regime. And examples have been given in different parts of the African continent, looking at South Africa with ANC, Tanzania with Chama cha Mapinduzi. What really has sustained some of these parties that in our very own country, we can't really be able to sustain this? Is it a question of people getting into parties because of personalities and not really ideologies? What exactly just is the issue with ruling parties that after an election or after that regime leaves power, you really don't hear much about?
What really happens?
About that party?
Most of the parties that currently we have around 80-something political parties in Kenya, as per the record from the political register.
I think it's even more than 70.
Exactly.
Quite a number.
But when you look at the formation of political parties, most of these political parties are always formed towards election. They give political players a platform to bargain, pre or post-election pacts, and they're only being used as buses to steer these politicians into an election. We all remember how Jubilee came about, the Jubilee Party. We had the URP, the TNA. They were formed, and this is where Jubilee Party was formed. The amalgamation of TNA and URP and all those other small parties that came together to form Jubilee. So when when they're fighting for the soul of Jubilee, they are fighting for the soul of all those political parties that came together to form Jubilee. TNA, URP,
where are these parties now?
They fought shop, and at that particular point, all of them were told, you know what? Kila mtu, fungeni, you come, this is the agreement. And when you are fighting for Jubilee, you are fighting for those political parties. We know what 2027 means to these politicians and to the political players. When you have Jubilee, how many parties do you have? almost 12 or 13
and
parties.
And Jubilee is the third largest party after UDA and ODM.
Exactly. So we all know. We all know. But will it sustain?
That's a good question. Will it?
Yeah, will it sustain? Former president said that he'll call for a meeting, and soon they'll give the way forward.
Now, as who? Okay, just do it.
Okay.
It is because it's.
Raila calls for more demos as talks stall on the front page of the Standard. Very quickly, opposition leaders say that they will be back on the streets tomorrow, accusing the government of withdrawing their security and lying on cost of maize flour. The announcement came as governors sought to break the Raila-Ruto impasse. And here, Sabina replaces Uhuru in Jubilee leadership coup. That is on page 5. Take a look at that story. Siror takes the helm at Kenya Power. I was looking at his CV. Stood out.
He deserved the job.
He deserved the job. I mean, he has a long CV here. It's well captured in the Star newspaper. You know, let me just give you an overview. Prior to his appointment, Dr. Siroro was the general manager in charge of technical services, systems, operations, and power management at the Kenya Electricity Transmission Company, KETRACO. He has experience spanning over 30 years in diverse business. I mean, this is it. Dr. Siroro holds a Doctor of Philosophy, PhD degree in engineering from Shanghai Jiantong University of China, majoring in radio frequency identification, a Master of Business Administration, MBA degree, and a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering degree from the University of Nairobi. He also holds a Bachelor's degree in Law from University of London, a pre-Kenya School of Law certificate from Riara University, and a postgraduate certificate in Applied Radiation Protection from the University of Nairobi.
Over.
Okay.
All I can say is that the wars in Kenya Power and the IPPs, okay. I hope he deals with it accordingly.
Shakahola victims were suffocated, autopsy shows. Most of them had strangulations, according to the postmortem done yesterday. Hospital ordered to pay 23 million shillings for birth mishap. Court says that Aga Khan University Hospital to blame for damage of baby's hand nerves. Now, boy requires 7.8 million shillings for physiotherapy with a life expectancy of 63 years. So, the court award the family a general damage of 15 million shillings besides other settlements. That is because of medical negligence. TVET heads push 4.7 billion shillings capitation, a want-own agency. The institutions in debt as they are yet to get money for third and fourth quarters. Jubilee Wars, Uhuru kicked out as out of party by Kanini Kega team. Again, what we talked about. Now, the faction accuses Uhuru of contempt of PPDT, that is Political Parties Dispute Tribunal ruling delivered on April 19th. Kega said that the matter has been referred to dispute resolutions. Interesting moments ahead. Azimio protest at withdrawal of security detail of Raila and Kalonzo. Karua accused Ruto of attempting to introduce martial law into the country. She said Azimio will retreat to strategize on protest to be held on Thursday, the retreat. All right, and finally on the People Daily, very quickly, Raila demos stopped. Azimio leaders vow to be back in the streets tomorrow, that's on Thursday. Governor set up team to mediate between rival parties, and bipartisan talks hit wall as teams fail to agree once again. Mackenzie in the dock over deaths in cults. That is on the front page of the Star newspaper of the People Daily. And we have the story here of people just giving their own ordeal and stories as far as this Shakahola case is concerned. Now, Germany's chancellor set for visit that in the country. He'll be here. Remember, President William Ruto was in Germany not so long ago, and now we have got the chancellor in the country here in the who will be visiting. And just to tell you that we'll be having the ambassador of Germany here on KBC Channel 1. That is tomorrow for a one-on-one interview ahead of that visit. That's
why we need a good political atmosphere. Does not send a good message.
Exactly. All right, tumalize hapo.
Yes.
Thank you so much for watching, and Doreen will be steering this particular event moving forward. Asante sana, good morning.
It's an event, no program.